So yesterday was the marathon, and to be completely honest, it was probably the hardest physical challenge that I've ever done up to this point. And it's truthfully because I didn't train for it. So earlier this year, in the beginning part of 2023, I sat down and I outlined a bunch of endurance-based events that I wanted to accomplish, most of which were high rocks and DecaFit events that are shorter races, and they are a hybrid type of training where you're running and you're lifting and you're doing calisthenics all kind of mixed together. And so I was running a lot leading up to my main race of the year, which was in June at the High Rocks in New York. And after that race, where I accomplished a couple new personal records, had a really good performance, felt really good, I was a little bit burnt out of running. Because truth be told, I'm not a runner. I actually like lifting weights. I like doing more athletic things. Running's great, and I do enjoy it for stretches at a time. But I think the reason I was burnt out was because I was dealing with a little bit of nagging injuries, a little bit of overtraining. So I took a break, and that short break turned into a longer break. And I basically stopped running for about 3 months. And then, of course, I had this marathon goal on my calendar to really finish out the year, or basically wrap up my big endurance goals for the year. And I went into the month before the marathon really wondering if I was actually going to do it or not. But a month before, I said, you know what? I said I was gonna do it. We had a bunch of clients that wanted to do it with me, and I didn't want to back out because I'd also missed a couple of races that I had on the calendar during that 3-month stretch where I wasn't running. So I didn't want to miss another one. All right, guys, so I'm running my first ever marathon with bare minimum training. If you followed me for any period of time, you know that I have gotten into endurance over the past couple of years, but I've never done a marathon before. And the past 3 to 4 months, I really cut down on running. But recently I started to pick it up just a little bit, but nowhere near fully prepared for a marathon. So we're gonna jump into a marathon with very little prep. Here we go. All right, guys, just picked up my race packet for the Marine Corps Marathon, which is this Sunday, October 29th, I believe. Yes, October 29th. And this is my first ever marathon. So if you're checking in this out and you're like, man, I'm thinking about doing a marathon, thinking about jumping into one, but I'm not sure if I'm prepared enough, not sure if I'm in shape enough. Well, let me just ease your fears right now. I really didn't train specifically for the marathon this time around. In fact, I've in the past trained for specific events, nothing close to a marathon, but I'm going into this with just a little bit of running experience. So the longest run I did leading up to this was about 10 to 12 miles. So I don't feel fully prepared, but nonetheless, I know mentally I can get through this. And I just wanna see where my body is, just wanna test it out. I'm not saying this is the perfect way to do it, but ultimately you'll come along for the ride, see how I do. And if you're trying to do a marathon for the first time, this will be a really good video for you to watch because it'll show you everything that I go through over the next 48 hours. And hopefully crossing that finish line with a smile on my face, feeling good, having done my first marathon, ready to tackle my next one and improve on the first one. So let's go eat some food, and I'll see you guys race day morning. So about a month ago, I started running again once or twice per week, but I just wasn't all in, like completely sold out. And of course, a month prior to a marathon is nowhere near enough time to get truly ready for a marathon. But I thought, you know, with the base I had built leading into the summer, I probably have some endurance in the tank. If I start running a month out, I'm at least going to perform at a decent level. So I told myself, you know, I'm a mentally strong person. If I just go and run a slow pace, I'll be able to run the whole thing, no issue whatsoever. And so about a week out from the marathon, a week and a half or so, I did one long run, and that run was 10 miles. It felt relatively easy. I didn't go out and kill myself for 10 miles. And in my head, I was thinking like 26 miles or 26.2, it won't be fun, but I'll be able to do it being mentally strong and just staying at a slow pace. So the race started off really good. I went out really slow. I forced myself to pull back. I didn't feel strenuous whatsoever.
Mile 1, 9:46. Mile 2, 9:50. Whew. Mile 3, 9:27. Mile 4, 9 minutes, 9 seconds. Mile 5, 9:43, just ran through Georgetown. A little bit of the hill, so a little slower, but should be picking up here.
And by mile 5, honestly, I was feeling pretty good. I was cruising at about a 9-minute, 15-second pace, feeling like I had a lot in the tank if I wanted to pick things up. I was taking in electrolytes every 2 to 3 miles along with water. I started to have a goo that I carried with me in my packet of a race goo every 4 to 5 miles. I was feeling really good, to be honest.
Mile 6, 9:20. Mile 7, 9:30. Mile 8, 9:04. All right, mile 9, 8:54. Feeling good. Feeling really good. Not sure if I look good, but let's go. Mile 10, 8:49.
10 miles in, I was cruising, no issue whatsoever. So at 10 miles, I decided to pick up the pace a little bit, which actually resulted in a half marathon, 2-hour run. So at 13.1, I was about 2 hours into the race. And I was actually pretty surprised because my body felt good. Obviously, I wasn't 100%. I was starting to fatigue in the legs, but my mind was clear. I felt good. I felt mentally strong. There was really no issue whatsoever.
All right, so miles 11, 12, actually 10, 11, 12, and 13, right around 9 minutes, but hit a wall. Not gonna lie, I'm struggling. So we just did a mile to about 11 minutes. I had to stop and pee and get some fuel, but 14 miles in, at least we're over halfway done.
Shortly thereafter, this is where things started to completely fall apart. So at mile 15, I noticed that my hip and my groin on my right side started to violently cramp up.
All right, 15 miles, 10:40 pace on the last one. Legs are just cramping. It's not even like, my brain is good. I'm not even tired. It's just the cramps. Took electrolytes and water every 2 miles, but just legs need more conditioning. So we're pushing on to mile 16.
Like, it literally went from feeling normal to, I felt like I was gonna tear my groin, which is a really awful feeling when you have to continually run and you're nowhere near done with the marathon. So I stopped, and this is probably where, I don't know if I made a mistake here or not, but I stopped running and I literally just went to the side and I started to stretch out. And when I did that, my other side started to cramp.
Dude, I hit my time for the first half.
I know, dude, I saw.
I was crushing, but funny enough, it's my groin.
Your groin?
Yeah, groin's cramping, dude, like right through here.
I saw another guy actually running by just now grabbing his groin like that.
So weird, I've never had that. But I'm not mentally tired, like
Can you keep going?
So easy in terms of like running, but like I could run another 20, I feel like, but it's just
the groin.
So I'm just trying to manage the cramps.
So I started to get into a little bit of a panic, and I was thinking to myself, man, with both sides of my groin cramping this violently, every time I try to run, it seizes up and I'm literally not able to run because I feel like I'm gonna tear this muscle off the bone. I started to think, this is my race, like I'm done. I made it about 15 and a half miles and I'm toast. My lungs felt fine. I wasn't like physically tired. I wasn't emotionally tired. I was actually, to be fair, I was pretty bored at that point, right? It was just like repetitive running over and over again. I was like, yep, I'm just gonna get to 26.2, but my body just wasn't cooperating. So I called a friend and I said, like, what should I do? And he was like, hey, you know, it was my friend Ryan, he's run tons of marathons, tons of 100-mile, 200-mile races. And he said, first of all, you gotta try to keep moving so that the blood flow continues and your whole body doesn't try to shut down. He said, but if there's a medical tent nearby, you should go to the medical tent, have them like really stretch you out, give you some electrolytes, give you some, I don't know what they call it, I guess, some biofreeze, right? Give you some biofreeze. And hopefully that'll get your body ready to at least continue moving, even if it's at a slow pace. So I did that, they stretched me out, and as soon as I got off the table where they were stretching me out, which actually it felt good to be stretched out, it felt like my body was responding well. As soon as I stood up, everything cramped up. Like literally everything. My calves locked up, I could feel my hip lock up, my quads locked up. It felt like I was gonna fall over, so I actually had to grab the table because literally everything was locked up. So I was about 16 miles in at this point, and everything in my head was like, dude, it's over. Like, how are you gonna make it 10 miles? You can't even walk, right? So you're definitely not gonna be able to run 10 miles, but walking is almost pretty much out of the equation as well. What is the answer? So in my head though, I was like, I can't quit, or I don't want to quit at this point because I made it 16 miles. Is my body capable of even moving at this point? So I started to kind of drag one leg behind the other, and I started to limp out of the tent. And in my head, I was like, I just want to see if I can start walking. If I can will my way to walk, then I'm going to think about not quitting at this point. In my head, I was thinking about all the clients that were running with me. I was thinking about all the clients that were wondering how I was doing. I was thinking about my kids, my family, like, what would they think if I quit, right? Like all my friends who knew I was running. And most importantly, like what I would have to face the next day. So I know that this sounds like a Rocky movie, and you know, you've heard this story before of like, don't quit, just keep going. But truthfully in this moment, like I didn't feel like I could keep going. So I took one step, then another, and truth be told, there was some blood flow that started to happen again. I could feel the cramps every step that I took and every leg muscle that I had, but at least I was walking. Even though it hurt, I was able to walk. I wasn't planning on walking the last 10 miles of the marathon. My goal was to slow jog it at the very worst, even if I wasn't running at a top pace. But that's what happened. I just started to walk, and I started to look around at all the people, at all the other racers, and I was honestly really emotional in that moment because I was frustrated, right? Like I wanted to run. There's no worse feeling, I think, than wanting to run the rest of the way and your body being like, nah, dude, like you're not gonna be able to. But I got down to 8 miles left, and then all of a sudden the sun comes out, right? It had been pretty overcast most of the morning. The sun comes out with about 8 miles left, and all of a sudden it got super, super hot, and I started sweating. Hadn't really been sweating that much up to this point, but I started sweating pretty bad because it was really hot. At 7 miles in, my AirPods died. So I was listening to music to kind of try to get me in the right state of mind, and then at 7 miles left, my earbuds died, so I had no more music. My phone died at 3 miles left. I had been texting my team, my friends, they were all encouraging me, and I was like getting messages back and forth. At 3 miles left, my phone died. So I had no phone, no music, just me and my thoughts. So in those thoughts, in this time where I got to think, I realized, you know, there's some things that I have to live right now that I actually preach all the time, right? And that is, your comfort zone is where your dreams and your goals go to die. Because if you really have big dreams, big goals, even if it's a marathon or whatever it is in your life, if you try to stay comfortable, then ultimately you're never gonna reach the goals that you have. You're gonna have to get uncomfortable at some point. And so with this marathon goal, this is my moment, right? This is the moment where, yeah, I was frustrated. Yeah, I'm not gonna hit some crazy run time. Yeah, I probably look silly out there walking. I'm in shape, but I'm walking because my legs won't work. But this is uncomfortable. This hurts, this is terrible. But if I wanna cross that finish line, this is what I'm gonna have to go through to get there. I also started realizing, you know, it's a choice if I wanna suffer. Fitness isn't about suffering. Even in your moments of greatest pain, when everything hurts and you just wanna quit and you wanna throw in the towel, you know, it's a choice to have to suffer. I chose in those last few miles to enjoy the miles, right? Because I'm like, man, when do I get a chance to just walk through DC? When do I get a chance to high five people as I'm walking by, or to have all these people telling me, good job, just keep going? You know, there was other racers walking with me, and not everybody was running. People were struggling right there next to me. It was an opportunity to get through it with other people, to do something together. And I chose those last 3 miles to be positive, right? I wasn't gonna suffer, I was just gonna smile through it. And I did. I high-fived literally every person who had their hand out. You know, I thanked the people from the Marines that were there volunteering. And I chose just to say, man, I'm gonna enjoy the next hour that it's gonna take me to finish this thing off, because fitness doesn't have to suck. It's just up to you to make the choice. And finally, the last thought I had as I got near the finish line was that I'd be foolish to expect stellar results with the zero amount of prep that I put into this. You know, I see this all the time with fitness where people get frustrated with results they don't get from the work that they didn't do. And this was no different. You know, I sat there in this frustration of this like pity party of like, man, why can't I run? This is so frustrating. I'm not tired. My legs just won't work. This sucks. And, you know, all these victim-based mindsets that I had. And I realized, man, I got no room for complaint because I didn't do the work. If I had trained for this thing for 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, and put in miles on miles and miles and had all my nutrition, my electrolytes, my water all perfectly dialed in, and this happened, yeah, I would feel pretty down, right? Because I'd be like, man, I put in all this work, but I didn't. You know, I was able, thankfully, to run 16 miles and hit a pretty sweet half marathon time and, you know, do 16 miles without any prep. But after that, my body's like, this is where we are. You know, like you didn't prep any further than this. So why should you expect to get further than that? So long story short, I was able to finish, which was a huge victory in and of itself, considering my legs weren't working the last 10 plus miles. Definitely the hardest thing, my hips, my knees, my ankles, my feet were, and still are actually as I'm filming this video, in pretty severe pain. But the one thing that's not painful is the fact that I'm not living with regret, right? I did what I said I was gonna do, and I stuck to my commitment, and you'll never regret sticking to your commitment. I'll never forget my first experience with a marathon. I wasn't anywhere near ready to run one, but it was back in 2009. I went to the Chicago Marathon in Chicago, and I was there to support a friend, and I was out on the course. I watched so many runners go by, and this is a true story. I saw this one guy, I'll never forget, this guy ran by me, and he was ripped, he was jacked, like super muscular, did not look like a runner, and it inspired me. I was like, man, like, that's inspirational for a guy who looks like that, who doesn't look like a runner, to be out here doing this race. And in my mind, I remember telling in my mind, I said, I want that. You know, I want to look like that. I want to perform like that. That's got to feel really good. And I told my friend after they did the marathon, I said, hey, at some point, I'm gonna do one of these things. Not now, probably not anytime soon, but when I do, I'm gonna be ripped, I'm gonna be jacked, I'm gonna do this, and hopefully I'll inspire somebody watching. And so I can tell you, I accomplished that at this past marathon. I was in shape, I had a lot of muscle, and I was able to run 16 miles. And I know a lot of people saw me run by, and I felt good, right? Which is the most important thing. I felt good about myself. And I know that we chase this good feeling, right? We chase this confidence. And I had that, I experienced it. And so it wasn't a failure by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I'd say there's a lot more accomplishment in this first marathon than shortcomings. But that being said, I can tell you right now, if you're watching this video, I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way. When you try to hit a goal and you miss it, right? Or you just come up short, you go, I'm not gonna be able to sleep well at night until I knock this goal out. So right after the race, I knew as I crossed that finish line, this won't be the last time that I cross this finish line. I'm not saying I'm going all in on marathons, because I truthfully don't think you have to run to be in shape or be healthy, but it's a cool thing to do if you want to test your body, you want to perform better. But I tell you right now, 2024 Marine Corps Marathon in DC, I will be back. I will be back, and I will run the whole thing. I will hit a new PR by a significant margin. Not that it's going to take a whole lot to hit a new PR, considering my time was well over 5.5 hours to finish this past time, but I will come in with the goal of sub 4. That is the goal heading into 2024 Marine Corps Marathon. It's sub 4 marathon. Stretch goal would be to qualify for Boston, which I think in my age group is 3.5 hours or less. But my main target is to run 2024 Marine Corps in under 4 hours next time. But that's gonna require preparation. In fact, I'm already starting to lay the groundwork now, thinking about how much running do I need to be doing a year out, right? To make sure I have a solid base going into what'll probably ultimately be a 3 to 4 month prep for the marathon itself. So stay tuned for that. I appreciate you watching my first ever marathon documentary here. And if you've run a marathon, let me know what your experience was like. I'm sure you've had similar experiences if you've done one before. You know what I'm talking about. But whatever your goals are, okay, whatever you want to accomplish, just know there's going to be some struggle. There's going to be some getting out of your comfort zone. My biggest advice to you is just don't quit. Don't quit, because life moves fast. Go make it count. Talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.